Well, hello everybody and welcome to Oulton Park, or if you were with us earlier on for the 911 Challenge and the Boxster Cup races, welcome back to Oulton Park. We've got the Porsche Club Championship lining up there on the grid ahead of the first of two races for them over the course of this afternoon, and we're looking forward to seeing how these cars propel themselves and how they get on around what is the full Oulton Park International Circuit. So the Petro-Canada Lubricants Porsche Club Championship with Pirelli, to give it its full title, is lined up there on the grid. The cars have actually been on the grid for quite some time because over the course of the lunch break, it's the supercar pageant weekend or day of racing here at Oulton Park, so it gave the competitors in the Petro-Canada Lubricants Porsche Club Championship with Pirelli the opportunity to line up on the grid over the lunch break, and all of the spectators could head on for a free grid walk so they could get up close and personal to the competitors and the cars. in this championship for what is a glorious day here. The temperature just under 20 degrees. Track temperature is above that. A light breeze coming in, but we are in for some cracking racing. The cars qualified this morning. This grid is based on their fastest times from qualifying this morning as they head off on their formation lap. The grid for the second race later on today is based on their second fastest times from the qualification session this morning. So let's guide you through the grid then as they head off on their final formation lap ahead of what is scheduled to be a 25-minute race here for the first of two races, we say, for the Petro-Canada Lubricants Porsche Club Championship with Pirelli. So in qualifying this morning, Simon Clark, who is leading the background, was the fastest. He was the only driver to dip into the 1 minute 48 second bracket. 1 minute 48.949 saw him qualify on pole position. He is the reigning champion. And alongside him, first time in a Class 1 car, first time on slicks, it's number 1, Matt Kyle-Henny. So it's 23-1 on row number 1. Row 2 of the grid is Chris Dyer, former runner-up in this championship from a couple of seasons ago. And alongside him is the number 11 car of James Cayley. The third row of the grid sees multiple former champion Pete Morris line up alongside Bill Cayley, and on row 4 of the grid, that's where we see long-time Porsche racer Kevin Harrison lining up alongside Neil Delaghi. So that gives you row number 4. Row 5 of the grid is Richard Bayston and number 47, champion in Class 2 from a couple of seasons ago, James Coleman. And then onto row number 6, that's where we see the car of Andrew Muggeridge sitting alongside Angus Archer, who finished third in the Class 2 championship last year. Onto the 7th row of the grid, that's where we see car number 30, which is Chris Astley, alongside number 91, Colin Tester, who was a little bit out of where I expected him to be in qualifying, so watch out for the number 91 car. I think it should make progress from where it starts. And row 8 of the grid is 44, which is Andrew Porter alongside number 88, who was runner-up in Class 2 last year, Paul Simpson. He's another car who is a little bit out of position for me. Plenty of local support for car number 24, Carl Hazelton, backed by Porsche Centre Chester. I know they've got a raft of guests here this afternoon. They'll all be cheering on Carl Hazelton. And alongside is number 45, which is Paul Seagrave. And Julian Morris goes off the back of the grid. 19 cars having qualified. No issues really in qualifying, so we should see all 19 there on the grid. Coming into this weekend, it's the car that lines up 5th on the grid, the multiple former champion, Pete Morris, that tops the championship standings. He's on 194 points, leading Class 1 coming into this one. Kevin Harrison, who lines up 7th on the grid, is 2nd in that class. That's largely because they've all been consistent so far this year. But the man on pole position, the reigning champion Simon Clark, he missed the Brands Hatch races. But of the 4 races he's competed in so far, he's won 3 of them and he's finished 3rd in the other. So he's playing catch-up because he hasn't scored at every single championship round. So he'll be hoping that he can substantively add to the tally of that one. And we'll have to wait and see as to what he might be able to do in this one. In terms of Class 2, well, James Coleman, who qualified on pole in Class 2 in the number 47 car, the black car with its lighter blue flashes, has been matched for pace with Colin Tester all year, but Colin Tester could only muster 4th quickest in Class 2. They've either won or finished 2nd on each occasion this year. So James Coleman's had 3 wins, he's had 3 seconds. Colin Tester's had 3 wins, he's had 3 seconds. But say Colin was only 4th quickest in qualifying, so that dark blue car with white bonnet and day-glow flashes to it, watch out for that car, because as I say, it's a little bit out of position to where I would have expected. A 25-minute race. This is round 7 of the 2022 Petro-Canada Lubricants Porsche Club Championship with Pirelli. The final car lines up at the back of the grid, which is the orange car of Julian Morris. And the red lights will come on the gantry, and we'll get this 25-minute race underway. Rear-engine cars should get off the grid rather well with all that weight over the back axle. And it looks so it's not a bad start from Chris Dyer from the 2nd row of the grid, but it is Matt Kyle-Henny that gets the best start by the look of things, and he's going to lead the charge up towards Old Hull Corner for the first time. And it's going to be Chris Dyer, the fast-starting Chris Dyer, who's slotted himself through into 2nd. The pole sitter, Simon Clark, the champion over the course of the last 2 years, is down into 3rd position as they head along the avenue in Dentons and down in towards Cascades for the first time. Matt Kyle-Henny at the wheel of this Porsche Cayman, which he hadn't even tested yesterday. The car was tested, but it was tested by Ross Morris. Matt Kyle-Henny jumped in it in qualifying this morning and went 2nd quickest in his first weekend of racing this car. He's recently graduated from university. This year is focused on his career. And is hoping to dip a toe in the water this weekend and maybe commit to a championship next year, but he didn't want to do it on the basis of his headed in towards industry for the first time, having just graduated. James Coleman is a little bit further down in Class 2 than I would have thought. It was a slow start from James Coleman, so we'll pick up on who's leading Class 2 in a few moments' time, but I think poor start from him. good start from Colin Tester. It do make me wonder as to whether Colin Tester in the early stages this one might be into the lead of Class 2 as the overall race leaders head down in towards the braking area for Hislops and Knickerbrook for the first time. So slithering their way through Knickerbrook and starting to head uphill. It is Matt Calhenny that leads the way. Chris Dyer, who finished 4th in this championship last year in the Strasser car, up into 2nd place. Simon Clark, who's been a multiple race winner when we've seen him out, is down there into 3rd. We should see Simon in for the rest of the season. 4th place at the moment is the first of the green and gold cars, so that will be one of the Cayley family. I would imagine it will be James that has got the jump at the wheel of the 997, whereas Bill drives the Cayman. In fact, yes, it does look as though it is that way round. For the lead of Class 2, by the look of things, looks as though it's just James Coleman. You can see all of the Class 2 cars, all absolutely nose to tail, including local man Carl Hazelton at the wheel of that car with the red stripe down the centre of it. So plenty of support for him this weekend in the Porsche Centre Chester back car. So up towards the braking area at the end of lap number 1. And Matt Calhenny led by just 0.4 of a second from Chris Dyer as they came over the start-finish line. The hordes of Class 2 cars just descending down in towards Cascades as they tumble downhill in towards the left-hander and then really open up the taps as they head along Lakeside for the second time. The 34 car, by the look of things, or rather 24 car I should say, which is Carl Hazelton looking to try and work his way up through the order as they head round through Shell Oil's hairpin. Early stage Class 2 leader James Cole, who has thankfully got one of the Class 1 cars between himself and the car behind. I think it's Andrew Muggeridge that sits in between himself leading Class 2 and Colin Tester, who, despite the poor qualifying, and only was 4th quickest in qualifying in Class 2, is up to 2nd in Class 2 and 11th overall from 14th on the grid. So it's a good start from Colin. I expected nothing else, to be honest. Bouncing over the curbs. In 3rd place was Simon Clark there, really unsettled his 996 as he looks to try and hunt down the 2 Caymans that lie ahead of him. And as they then start to head uphill and in towards the braking area for Druids, it's a Cayman 1-2 at the moment with the 996 off. Back-to-back champion from 2020-2021, Simon Clark, very much with them. Then it's James Cayley who sits there in 4th position, Kevin Harrison 5th, Bill Cayley's there in 6th place, but he's got cars queuing up behind him as well, which includes Richard Baston, and Pete Morris was only 8th at the end of the first lap, the multiple former champion. So over the start-finish sign they'll come. Chris Dyer getting a little bit defensive now as he starts to feel the attack from Simon Clark, but Simon Clark isn't close enough, keeps the number 23 car behind the Strasser entered and prepared Cayman of Chris Dyer. And as they start to head again for the 3rd time in towards what is Cascades, all of these cars pushing on hard. Now we saw the Class 3s out earlier on where those cars are limited to 2 sets of tyres over the course of the season. Well, the cars that run in Class 2 have less limitations on the tyres. They're limited to 1 set for every 2nd race meeting, whereas cars that run in Class 1 are allowed 1 brand new set of tyres for every single race meeting. They all run Control Pirelli tyres. In the case of the Class 1 cars, of course, it's a slick tyre as well. And for those in Class 2, sorry, the Class 3 cars we saw out earlier on are the treaded tyres. Now, it looks as though Matt Calhenny is just getting away a little bit in the lead of the race here. That's because Chris Dyer's attentions are now turned towards defence. The man who finished runner-up in this championship back in 2019 is coming under attack from the back-to-back champion for the last couple of years. Simon Clark isn't going to quite be able to do anything heading in towards the braking area for his lops. And because Chris Dyer is sort of concentrating on defence, it's just allowing Matt Calhenny to edge away to a degree. See his Cayman now has broken away from what is a squabble forming, fully formed for 2nd and 3rd, but keep an eye towards the car in 4th place as well, because if they start to hold each other up, James Cayley may well be in the mix as well before too much longer. Edging up onto the coattails of the cars that are squabbling over 2nd and 3rd position is that largely green car with its gold flashes that sits behind the 997. So onto the brakes, James Cayley's bringing with him Kevin Harrison and Bill Cayley as well. Now the race leader, Matt Calhenny, made a bit of a mistake there heading out of Lodge, and all of a sudden he's back under attack from Chris Dyer. That was a poor exit from Lodge, and look, all of a sudden Chris Dyer, is he going to go through to the lead of the race? Yes, he does. He goes through to pick up the lead of the race. Matt Calhenny in 2nd place. Simon Clark, I thought, had made a mistake in the background in 3rd, but he's actually had a very good run out of Old Hall Corner and may now be right onto the coattails of the erstwhile race leading car. But exactly what Matt Calhenny did I'm not entirely sure, but he just seemed to lose time coming out of Lodge Corner. Maybe got it a little bit sideways, couldn't get on the power, ran a little bit wide. We'll have to wait and see. But either way, he's lost the lead of the race and is now having to try and hunt down Chris Dyer, who has been racing in this championship for a good number of years as Chris, but he's not had a win as yet so far this year. His best was the opening round of the championship where he finished in second place. Chris Dyer leading the way. Matt Carl-Henny having made that mistake, dropping down into second, trying to fight back. And we'll see what happens to Simon Clark as to what he might be able to do as well, as he remains there in third position. Back behind, they've got Richard Baston beginning to close in as well, just behind them, and Pete Morris, that's one of his teammates as well, that's starting to close in ever more. So apologies for the technical issues that we had earlier on. You're back with us now though with full pictures, so thanks to the crew for sorting those out. Fastest lap of the race has gone to Kevin Harrison actually, so the number 16 car running in 5th place, 1 minute 51.436 from Kevin Harrison in the number 16 car. 9th place is the leader of Class 2 at the moment as well, which is James Coleman. But the battle at the front and for Class 1 is intriguing as well. Big slide, big mistake from Bill Cayley and also Pete Morris as well coming out of Lodge Corner. They both get very squirrely indeed, gather up the moment, but Pete Morris goes through as a result of that mistake. He's now up into 6th position. Bill Cayley drops down into 7th place, but is now under attack from the 996 of Richard Baston that sits behind. So it's 997 from Cayman, from 996, such is the way that the championship regulations are written. It equalises the performance of all of these cars. So some might be lighter than others, but therefore they have to carry more weight, and over the course of a race, it should equalise itself out. So down Lakeside, up towards Island Bend, turning their way through the daunting Island Bend. So quick round through that section of the circuit, particularly in these cars on their slick tyres. And then the speeds begin to build again. For the lead of the race, though, now Matt Carl-Henny in 2nd place hasn't fallen away too much from the car of Chris Dyer, but Matt Carl-Henny has got his hands very full indeed, hasn't he? He's got Simon Clark absolutely shadowing him and in his Pirelli wheel tracks as they head downhill in towards the braking area for the Hislop chicane, and then up towards Knickerbrook. Again, you can see Richard Clark's car just sort of hits that curb and it just sort of bounces around, doesn't it? Skitters around as he heads through the latter part of it, uphill and in towards the double apex at Druids. Now, Chris Dyer was leading by just 1.1 second when they came over the start-finish line last time through. It looks as though the gap between himself and Matt Calhenny actually might have remained reasonably static to that this time through, despite the fact that Matt Calhenny is still under this enormous pressure from Simon Clark. Multiple race winner so far this year, Simon Clark, but as we say, wasn't available to race at the Brands Hatch rounds, so that's put a dint in his championship tally at this stage. But of course, this is all before drop scores get taken into account. So up towards a conclusion of another lap. You drop your worst 2 scores in this championship, 14 rounds to it. You count your best 12. So for the car in third place, Simon Clark, his 2 dropped rounds will be the 2 that he wasn't present at Brands Hatch. So the key for him, if he wants to make it 3 championships on the trot, 2020, 2021 and possibly 2022, the key for that car in third place is he's got to be consistent for the rest of the year. He can't afford another non-score or poor finish, and third would be plentiful enough at this stage. 18 points for third position. If you could gain the place over Matt Calhenny ahead, though, subject to whether Matt is even eligible for the championship and registered for it, he may well be non-scoring this weekend. I don't know that for sure, but it would be 21 points for second place. 25 points go the way of our race leader, which at the moment is still Chris Dyer. So out of Britons, over Hilltop they'll come. Cayman 1 and 2, the 996 sitting there in third position, the 997, which is the car of James Cayley, sitting there in fourth place. Fifth is Kevin Harrison's 996, and completing the top 6 it's another 997, which is Pete Morris. Now this is the battle further down through the order. The car ahead is Andrew Muggeridge, but the 2 cars behind, that number 47 car, is James Coleman. Now he is leading Class 2 at this stage. Now he is under enormous pressure from the car that sits directly behind him, which is the number 30 car of Chris Astley. So Chris is pushing hard. Allegedly Chris is only competing in one of the races. Trevor Lewis, I think, is scheduled to take over that kind of big twitch for Chris Astley coming out of Knickerbrook. You can see just how hard he is pushing what is the class leader, James Coleman. James, who was the champion in Class 2 a couple of seasons ago. He finished third in Class 2 back in 2019. He's always been at the sharp end of Class 2 for the last couple of seasons, but he's having to work hard here to remain at the sharp end of it because Chris Astley is absolutely with him. Is he going to try anything as they head up towards Lodge? No, he shows the nose of the car just to try and distract the man ahead. That's a spin, and that is Neil Delaghi recovering by the look of things, and that is also off and into the barriers there on the inside of Druids, I'm afraid to say, for Angus Archer. You can see rear damage to Angus Archer's car. You can see that left rear of the car. Something has happened. Now, it doesn't look as though the car's hit the barriers, but it looks as though more that's either a suspension failure or a toe link that's gone or something like that. So the man who was third in Class 2 championship last year, out of the race. And now for the lead of the race, we're back together again once more, because not only have we got Matt Calhenny back with Chris Dyer, but we've also had a change for third place, because James Cayley in the 997 is now ahead of Simon Clark by the look of things. So that is a shuffle for order there. Now, exactly where that happened, I'm not entirely sure, but James Cayley will be more than pleased with that. Whereas for Simon Clark, he will be slightly more disgruntled with it. Potentially another 2 championship points have just ebbed away there. As over the top, well, there's the Lancaster. Fantastic stuff. One of only 2 flying Lancasters in the world. The other one is over in Canada, and that is the City of Lincoln. And it is badged at that Lancaster, part of the Battle of Britain Memorial flight based at Coningsby in Lincolnshire. Wonderful to see it in the skies over Oulton Park. Back to the race though, up towards Lodge Corner. Chris Dyer under attack from Matt Calhenny, who weaves one way, weaves the other. Still 10 minutes to go. Nothing between the pair of them. Matt Calhenny last time through in second place, set the fastest lap of the race as well. 1 minute 51.331 in his efforts to try and attack for the lead of the race. But now he might need to defend, you know, because James Cayley is right with him. The 997 has really, or 996 isn't it by the look of things, has come on really strong over the course of the last lap or so. Downhill and in towards the braking area for Cascades they will go. And let's have a quick look. Yeah, the 997 of James Cayley just ahead of the 996 of what is Simon Clark that sits behind. But Simon Clark in a straight line getting in the tow, starting to close up onto the coattails of James Cayley. So it's Cayman from 997 from 996 at the moment, just going to show that the regulations work the way that it equates the power and the weight of these cars so as to make sure that nobody has an advantage. And year after year after year, this is what we've seen within the Porsche Club Championship. or as it's badged officially now, the Petro-Canada Lubricants Porsche Club Championship with Pirelli, as it has been for a couple of seasons now. It's been called that. Now Simon Clark, does he get a better run coming out of Britain's this time through to try and draw the 996 right up onto the boot lid of James Cayley? Well, he does, but the braking area for his lops is not one of the easiest to try and sneak your way through. You need to be at least alongside, and he wasn't. And now that they're all squabbling, it's also allowing Kevin Harrison to begin to close in as well at the wheel of his 996. So uphill, 8.5 minutes to go. And they're about to start their 10th lap of the race. You can see the tyre marks there as a result of what happened to Angus Alcher and potentially Neil Delaghi, who may well have had a little bit of contact and coming together, which caused the spin for one and the retirement for the other. But on to what will be the 10th lap before too much longer. Simon Clark, very late, trying to sneak his way up the inside of James Cayley, who just got the door closed in time. Now, is that going to compromise the exit speed of the car that's there in third place? I think it might have, but it might just be enough to keep the aspirations of Simon Clark at bay as they came over the start-finish line. So we'll wait and see when they head through, and hopefully we'll be able to still see as to whether James Cayley can hang on to it. Looks as though as they come out of the bottom section of the circuit, James Cayley, through Cascades, he's just hung on to it there, despite Simon Clark probably as close to him as he's been since losing what was the podium spot. Well, he's trying to attack back again. Any overtake that doesn't quite work means that the car that's behind Kevin Harrison will be poised to try and wiggle his way through. We certainly know that Kevin Harrison knows a thing or two about racing Porsches. The Boost Oxygen back car. He's been racing in this championship for a very good number of years as Kevin, on and off. But the top five all still together. Chris Dyer, Matt Calhenny, James Cayley, Simon Clark, Kevin Harrison. As close as that, there's only 2.5 seconds separating the top five cars at the end of that lap. Still leading Class 2 at this stage is James Coleman, and he has a slight advantage now between himself and the number 30 car of Chris Astley, because since we last looked back, there's about 1.4 seconds between those two for the lead and second in Class 2. And third in Class 2 at the moment, just to give them a mention, is car number 44, which is Andrew Porter's car. So that's the top three in Class 2, but the overall race leaders and those in Class 1 head round through Druids, and Kevin Harrison, who did have the fastest lap of the race, lost it last time through, because now the new fastest lap of the race is with Matt Calhenny with that 1 minute 51.331 from a couple of laps ago. But you can see the top four, and you can argue the top five not that far away, with Pete Morris just in the background in the number 2 car in the hands of the multiple former champion, completing the top 6. So 6 minutes to go. Should be able to squeeze out 3, probably 4 more laps. So that's now 10 laps completed. Probably get 14 laps, I think, out of the remaining time that's left. Simon Clark looking to try and attack to get himself back in the podium spots. The 2 Caymans ahead of Chris Dyer, the race leader, and Matt Calhenny in that white and grey and gold liveried machine, still squabbling over the lead. They were separated by just 3/10, and last time through, new fastest lap of the race goes to the car in 4th place. That car there, with its sort of almost teal and yellow livery to it. Simon Clark, 1 minute 51.289 now from Simon Clark is the fastest lap of the race, and that does give him, for the moment, the extra championship point that goes with that. So the all Constantine are up again, absolutely the lead 5 together as they head round through Shell Oils that time through. Chris Dyer in the Strasser car at the front of the queue, the Boost Energy car of Kevin Harrison at the tail end, and off, I'm afraid, at Britain's, and that is Matt Calhenny that has got some sort of problem. The car just didn't want to seem to turn into the corner all of a sudden. Now, is he going to get going again? Looks as though he is going to park that up, I think, out of harm's way. So, is he? Let's have a look. He's going to rejoin the circuit, but was it just a case of he couldn't get the car stopped in time? I think it might have been, he just couldn't get the car anchored up as he wanted to, but all of a sudden, all of the hard work that he's done has rather come undone for Matt Calhenny. Now, there's clearly a problem with the car by the look of things, so he heads down in towards his lots, does not take the chicane as he ought to do, and I think he's going to be destined for the pit lane at the end of this lap, which is an enormous shame for Matt Calhenny in the SW Engineering Cayman S, which now leaves 4 for the lead of the race, and it now means that James Cayley is up into 2nd position. Simon Clark is back in the podium spots once more, but guess what? The number 23 car is still under attack from Kevin Harrison, who would desperately like to try and hoist himself into the podium positions. Kevin's 2nd in the championship so far this year. He's had a win, he's had a 2nd, he was 3rd in both of the races last time out at Snetterton, He's not had a fourth as yet so far this year, though. He started the season with a couple of fifths at Oulton Park, so he would dearly like to get himself back in the podium spots, and he's trying everything to try and do so. But the difficult thing for him is that he's got to try and get past Simon Clark, who is a double former champion, while Simon Clark is looking to try and attack James Cayley, who lies ahead, who finished 6th in this championship last year, having finished 4th the year before in 2020. So round through Island Bend they'll go. With what happened to Matt Calhenny there, it's just allowed Chris Dyer to have a bit of breathing space again. Not by much, but just a small car length may be gained as a result of what happened at this point of the circuit on the previous lap. And as for Matt Calhenny, at the end of that lap, they were expecting the car to have headed into the pit lane, and I'm not sure that he has done. Yes, he has. Yes, he has headed into the pit lane, I'm afraid. So into the pit lane did come Matt Calhenny at the end of that lap. So 3 minutes to go. Chris Dyer looking to see if he can scoop up his first win of the championship season. Chris Dyer desperately trying to make sure that he hangs on to it. We did see him claim wins in previous seasons, but for this year, not as yet has he had a race win. And he'll be more than happy that behind they start to squabble, as they are doing. James Cayley under pressure from Simon Clark, who might have drawn himself alongside here. Is he going to sneak his way back through into second place? It was a good run through Druids, and he does, yes. Simon Clark goes back through into second place. James Cayley now back down into third position, and Kevin Harrison, with the best seat in the house, sitting there in fourth place with a couple of laps to go. Over the start-finish line, 12 laps completed. On to lap number 13 they go, and that change for position has surely aided the cause of Chris Dyer that time through, who was, a 1/10 of a second quicker than Simon Clark behind, so the lead advantage does come out a shade more. But the next thing they need to worry about is a little bit of traffic just up the road that they need to try and squeeze their way through and past. And that traffic is, by the look of things, Matt Calhenny, who has been into the pit lane, has clearly had some adjustments done to the car and is back out there. So I would imagine it's not particularly going to be a slow back marker, but Matt Calhenny knows the score. He will know that what he needs to do is just stay out of harm's way and try and make sure that he doesn't compromise the run of the front runners as they head towards him, and try and place a lap upon him. Leading Class 2, still in 9th position, is James Coleman, we ought to say. And the relative gap is less than a second again, so he has been caught by Chris Astley over the course of this last lap, so we'll need to keep an eye towards the battle for 9th and 10th, number 47 and the number 30 car respectively, just to see what's going on. So here comes Chris Dyer, the car that he was squabbling away with for the lead before too much longer. He's about to place a lap on. So Matt Calhenny, is he going to do the right thing and stay out of the way? Well, at the moment Chris Dyer isn't close enough to him, but the blue flags will wave before too much longer, and I'm sure Matt, who is only in for this weekend, we're not sure that we're going to see him again later on in the season, but he may do and commit to a full championship next year. But for this weekend, it's just a toe in the water with things that may happen in 2021. Now, Chris Dyer was a little bit sideways there, coming out of Druids, and that's allowed Simon Clark to get a good run on him this time, heading up in towards the braking area for Lodge. So all of a sudden, Chris Dyer finds himself under pressure. The Cayman still leads. The 996 behind is beginning to close in, and they are about to head onto their final lap of the race, whilst they've still got the traffic of Matt Calhenny to worry about. Now, the one good thing for Chris Dyer is that Matt Calhenny is not slowing him up, so that's the target that Chris Dyer will be working with. He'll forget the fact that he was squabbling with him, stick with Matt Calhenny. Whatever the problem was, they've sorted it. Maybe a puncture possibly for him. So Chris Dyer isn't being held up by Matt Calhenny. Matt Calhenny's far enough ahead so as to not to blend out of the throttle. The blue flags aren't being waved, so he'll stick with it, and Chris Dyer is just now needing to make sure that he focuses on the road ahead and ignores the menacing 996 of Simon Clark that sits directly behind him. So round through Island Bend they will come up towards Shell Oil's corner. James Cayley still not that far away. Kevin Harrison just off the podium spots at the moment, out of Shell Oil's for the final time. Now, last time at Druids, it was slight sideways movement from Chris Dyer that cost him. He maybe compromised the entrance to Britain's there, and has that compromised his exit? We'll have to wait and see. I don't think it has, so Simon Clark is far enough away as they come over Hilltop. Chris Dyer is not having to watch his mirrors too much. Nose to tail, though, they will head round through Hislops for the final time. The clock has ticked to 0. Chris Dyer looking for his first win of the season in the Petro-Canada Lubricants Club Championship with Pirelli. And as this is the 7th round, it still gives him plenty of opportunity to add to the tally, at least, not least of which later on this afternoon when we'll see their second race of the weekend. So Chris Dyer out of Druids, was a little more circumspect with his approach to it this time. The car didn't get quite as sideways, so he's not under the same pressure that otherwise he might have been up towards Lodge Corner. Looks so Chris Dyer has surely done enough here to make sure that he claims the first win of the day in the Petro-Canada Lubricants Porsche Club Championship with Pirelli. Round 7 of the 2022 championship season goes the way of Chris Dyer with his first win of the season. It's Simon Clark that comes through to finish in 2nd place, with James Cayley finishing there in 3rd place, Kevin Harrison in 4th, Pete Morris in 5th again. He's getting used to 5ths. He was 5th in the 2 races at Snetterton. It's another 5th place here for Pete Morris, and then waiting the arrival of Bill Cayley, who will finish in 6th position. Richard Baston 7th on the road, but I think he's got a time penalty for going beyond the circuit limit, so through comes Richard Baston to finish in 7th position on the road. But on corrected times, is he going to hang on to it? I think he will, because I think he got sufficient daylight between himself and Andrew Muggeridge, who is running 8th, so that it won't affect the ultimate finishing positions of the pair of them. And then we also need to hang on for 9th and 10th, because 9th and 10th would be for the lead of Class 2, and it is just, by the look of things, the black car with the blue flashes, teal flashes to it, fist out of the window. James Coleman, who finished as the champion in Class 2 in 2020, he comes through to claim a Class win in Class 2, and that will be his 4th Class 2 win of the championship season, from only just Chris Astley. And completing the Class 2 podium should be car number 44, which is Andrew Porter. So that should be our Class 2 podium sorted as well. So that is the first of our 2 Petro-Canada Lubricants Porsche Cup Championship with Pirelli races. Just to confirm the results, Chris Dyer wins by just over 1/10 of the second from Simon Clark in 2nd place, with James Cayley in 3rd. And you can see the top 3 drivers all separated by less than a second. Kevin Harrison was 4th, ahead of Pete Morris and Bill Cayley, who wrapped up the top 6. Then it was Richard Baston, who, even on corrected times, hung on to 7th place from Andrew Muggeridge in 8th place. And 9th and 10th, they're the first 2 cars home in Class 2. James Coleman claiming the win, only just out from Chris Astley. Just outside of the top 10, completing the Class 2 podium, was car number 44, which was Andrew Porter. After that, Paul Simpson was in 12th place, with Paul Seagrave finishing in 13th place. Carl Hazelton, with all of that support from Porsche Centre Chester, could muster 14th in the end, and 15th went the way of car number 10, which is Julian Morris. Colin Tester had problems. The number 91 car would have expected him to be higher up, but clearly he had a few issues, and we know that there were issues also for Matt Calhenny, who was squabbling for the lead before problems happened. That's it for the moment from the Petro-Canada Lubricants Porsche Club Championship with Pirelli, but do join us later on this afternoon for the 911 Challenge and Boxsters, and of course we'll see the Porsche Club Championship back out as well. Until then, goodbye.